Welcome to Back to the Bible with pastor and Bible teacher Bryan Clark. All this month, Bryan will be focusing on the birth of Christ. We trust this will deepen your relationship with God as you prepare your heart for the true meaning of Christmas. Now let's join Bryan for today's inspiring message.
One of the things that always strikes me this time of year is how absolutely saturated our culture is with the message of Christmas. I mean, we may complain about a nativity scene removed from this place or that place, but frankly, the message is everywhere, mostly carried through the music. These Christmas carols we sing are some of the most theologically rich songs the church has. And they're everywhere. They're in the mall, they're in the stores, they're in the schools, they're on the radio. But I find myself wondering, do you people hear the message of Christmas? I hear these famous singers sing these great, theologically rich Christmas songs, and I wonder, how do you not get this? How do you not understand what you're singing? Think of it this way. Do you imagine that this weekend, the mall will be filled with people who would say their lives are boring? They're mundane, they're cranking it out. Who would say that they're confused, they don't know where to turn, their marriage is falling apart, their kids have gone south, their business is falling apart, they don't know who to talk to, they don't know who to listen to. Those people whose lives are filled with despair, disappointment. This isn't what I thought life would be. And those that are filled with anxiety and fear and anger. And yet all around them, the message is right there. That there is one who has come for the very purpose of changing the stuff that breaks our hearts. That's what we want to talk about today. As a matter of fact, I would consider this my Christmas present to you. My prayer would be that when you walk back out those doors, there would be a renewed sense of hope. That no matter what's breaking your heart today, the Savior has come, and it's going to be okay. If you have a Bible, turn with me to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, a very familiar passage, a very familiar Christmas passage. Just before we get into it, I want to back up and pick up a little history. Genesis chapter 2, in my opinion, is the best picture of what God has always wanted for people made in His image. It's a beautiful picture of life as God intended it. Genesis chapter 3, you know the story, is the story of the fall. Adam and Eve rebel against God and everything starts coming unraveled. In the midst of all of that, there is a promise made. The promise is that through the seed of a woman, God would crush the head of the serpent. In other words, when the story is finally told, God wins. God will redeem everything back as He intended it. The seed of a woman is the reference that this will come through a child, one who would be born, who would be human, and somehow would make things right. There's a hint in Genesis 3 that would somehow include the shedding of blood to cover the shame of sin. We advance the story to Genesis chapter 15, and we learn that the one who would shed His blood would be none other than God Himself. That God somehow would shed His blood because of our inability to keep the covenant. Therefore, we put together that somehow God Himself would become this seed of a woman, would become a child, somehow to become the Savior of the world. That's what the prophet Isaiah then picks up in chapter 9, verse 6. For a child will be born to us. You hear it right there. That's the language of Genesis 3. The seed of a woman, a child. It's the promised child. A son will be given to us. That's a reference to his deity. That's the other half of the equation. There would actually be the Son of God who would be given to us. This seed of a woman, this God in the flesh would come together. And the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name shall be called. It's very important to remind ourselves that names in the Bible are not just labels, they're descriptions. So when we're talking about the names of this one who is to come, we're talking about his description. We're talking about who he is and what he will do. His name shall be called Wonderful. Now, there's always debate about whether it's Wonderful Counselor or whether it's Wonderful, comma. And there's no real way to determine this. There's no grammatical secret that you can unpack to figure it out. It's just a constant debate, and it's probably best not to be too dogmatic on it. I like it wonderful, comma. There's a couple of times in the Old Testament where God uses this same Hebrew word to describe himself. He says, my name is wonderful. I think when we make a wonderful counselor, we just skip by the wonderful part too fast. If you were to be honest with me, is anybody bored with life? Just cranking it out, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It's kind of funny how this goes. We work really hard so we get what we need to survive, so that we can work really hard so that we get what we need to survive, so we work really hard to get what we need to survive, and at some point you have to say, that's it? That's the deal? That's how we're going to pass 60, 70 years? Tell me there's more to life than that.
You're listening to Back to the Bible. If you'd like to listen again, you'll find today's program along with older messages at backtothebible.org. And while you're there, browse our devotions, Bible studies, and Bible plans. You'll find a wide variety there, all designed to help you experience a deeper relationship with Jesus. That's at backtothebible.org. Visit today, backtothebible.org. Now let's return to our program.
Now, don't mistake being busy for not being bored. As a matter of fact, I think this is rather counterintuitive. I think it's backwards. I would suggest to you some of the people in this life that are the most bored are those that are the most busy. That's why they're busy. They're bored. That's what's driving the energy. There's no sense of meaning. There's no sense of purpose, so they just drive the machinery faster and faster, hoping they won't have to really examine the emptiness of life. Someone once said, beware of the barrenness of a busy life. I think that's right. I think we're way too busy, and I think we're busy because we're bored. It's a little bit like a preacher that has nothing to say, so if he says it really fast, maybe nobody will notice. Kind of feels the same way. Those people that have figured it out live with a sense of meaning, live with a sense of purpose, live with a sense of significance. They find a rhythm. They're not out of control. They don't have that sense that they're just rushing from here to there. There's a sense of purpose. There's a sense of wonder. There's a sense of mystery. There's a sense of mission. I can guarantee you God did not put you on this earth and give you life in order for you to survive, in order for you to crank it out, just waiting for what's next. But if you're going to experience a life filled with wonder, you have to surrender to the one whose name is wonderful. You know, one of the problems in our world today is we are overwhelmed with information. Nobody in the history of the world has ever had the mass of information that we have, and every day we amass more information. But information doesn't mean we have knowledge, and knowledge doesn't mean we have understanding. I think we have a mass of information and we know very little. Less and less people live their lives with a sense of mystery because we think we know it all. I wonder, we Google it up. We've got the answer. We know it all. There's no mystery left anymore. Google has solved the world. You know what we know? With all of our technology, with all of our science, with all that we have, what we know now is that we know very little. What we know now is this world is more unbelievably complex and mysterious than anyone 100 years ago could have possibly imagined. What we now know is that we know very little. That raises an interesting question. Why would God make such a mysterious, complex world? And why would he make us as people made in his image with this sense within us that longs for a sense of mystery, a sense of wonder, for something more than merely the boredom of life? My dog doesn't long for that. My horse doesn't long for that. They're not made that way. Perfectly happy eating grass his entire life. I'm not like that. Tell me there's more to life than that. There's something hardwired within me that says, tell me there's a mystery, there's a mission, that there's something to this life more than just wasting it away. Could it be that God has made us in such a way that part of what defines the meaning and purpose in life is living with this sense of mystery, this sense of wonder, this sense of mission, which involves courage and it involves risk, and it involves surrender to the one whose name is wonderful. His name shall be called Wonderful. This deals with the boredom of life. His name shall be called Counselor. You ever get bad advice? You ever got bad advice on what to do with your money? Bad advice on your business, on how to make your marriage work, how to raise your kids? This is a really confusing world that we live in. There's hundreds and hundreds of voices speaking into our lives, telling us what to do and how to live and how to make our lives work and how to be happy and how to find meaning. It's confusing. It's overwhelming. Think of all the voices that seek to speak into our lives. I've never understood the celebrity voice. Just because somebody stands in front of a camera and makes a living pretending to be somebody else doesn't qualify that person to tell you how to live, yet they do it all the time. And people listen to them all the time. I can have great respect for a world-class athlete, but just because you can throw a football a long ways doesn't qualify you to tell me how to live. But these are the voices we listen to in our culture. The marketers of our culture have an assignment to make us dissatisfied with life in order that we might need something more to be happy. I've been shocked at a Christmas commercial. I guess I shouldn't be shocked, but I think I am. Where a couple comes out of the house and there's a brand new Lexus sitting in the driveway and there's a bow on it. They're picking up on the old Lexus commercials from years gone by. And just about the time they're celebrating, they both look out into the street and their countenance falls, and you can tell by their face, they're suddenly really sad. And they're sad because a different make, a Buick Regal's going down the street. And what they realize is we could have had one of those. And I think to myself, really? Have we come to that? I have a brand new Lexus in the driveway, and I'm sad because I could have had that. Where does this end? You know, we laugh at our children because 2 hours after they open a present, they're bored with it. The question is, how are we different? The voices of the marketers speak to us and say, be dissatisfied. The only way you're ever going to be happy in life is if you learn to want what you already have and to appreciate it and to find meaning in life as something more than just our stuff.
You're listening to Back to the Bible. If you'd like to listen again, you'll find today's program along with older messages at backtothebible.org. And while you're there, browse our devotions, Bible studies, and Bible plans. You'll find a wide variety there, all designed to help you experience a deeper relationship with Jesus. That's at backtothebible.org. Visit today, backtothebible.org. Now let's return to our program.
You know, I talk about the marketers of the world, but frankly, the religious world is just as confusing. You turn on the religious channels, and they're filled with people waving this book and telling you how to live. I probably watch them more than I should, but I can tell you a lot of what they're saying isn't true. They're promising you things God never promised you. They're saying things that just simply aren't true. So it gets confusing, and you find yourself asking, who do I listen to? Who speaks into my life? Who's telling the truth? I have no problem understanding why people get cynical. I completely understand it. But we're still left with the question, who do I turn to get counsel for my marriage? About raising my kids, about what to do with my money, about how to process this disease. What if I could promise you a counselor who's always right? Who knows the beginning from the end, who knows your story all the way through. He's never given bad counsel. And what if he was available to you personally 24/7, no charge? Would you be interested? What if I was to tell you he's actually written a book filled with counsel? You know, sometimes I think of the Bible like I think of my phone. If you know me, you know I have no great love affair with technology. I tolerate it at best. I think I should have lived 100 years ago. I have a cell phone. I'm on the 10 minutes a month plan. It always shocks me when it rings. I use it for email. I love it for that. It's very efficient. And I do a little texting because it's the only way my kids will talk to me. My phone is amazing. The first computer I ever owned was an Apple IIe, 64K floppy disk. What this phone can do compared to that computer is unbelievable. But I don't ever use it for that. It's there, I just don't access all that stuff. That's how a lot of people view the Bible. They would say wonderful things about the Bible. But from Sunday to Sunday, it's never opened. It's never read. This is like a life GPS. It's all in there. How to save my marriage, how to raise my kids, how to manage my money, how to run my business, how to process the most difficult times in life, how to break the addiction. It's all right here. When David was talking about the Bible, he said, it's more precious than gold. It's sweeter than honey. In the ancient world, honey was the sweetest of the sweet, and gold was the most precious of all metals. You know, God's written us a book full of counsel. This world is confusing. Some of the mistakes are absolutely devastating. What if I was to tell you, not only do you have access to the book, you could actually talk to its author? You could say, hey, I've been reading your book. There's some parts of it I just don't get. Wonder if we could talk about this. And what if you had access to that author 24/7? No charge. His name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God. Anybody need a Christmas miracle? I know a lot of people that do. Anybody have a marriage that needs a miracle? Anybody have children who have wandered away? You're starting to feel like it's hopeless. Anybody battling a disease that just isn't going to go away? Anybody struggling with an addiction? Financial disaster? Anybody need a Christmas miracle? When we operate as our own God, we soon experience hopelessness and despair because deep down we know we're not up to the task. I can't save my marriage. I can't fix my children. I can't make this disease go away. And it gives me despair. It gives me a sense of hopelessness. But what about the one who created the universe? The one named Mighty God. When the angel appeared to Mary and said, Mary, you're going to have a child. Mary said, how's that supposed to happen? I've never known a man. The angel said, hey, with God, nothing is impossible. There's no reason for despair. There's no reason for hopelessness. The one who came is the one who is the mighty God. There's no such thing as impossible. John chapter 4, great story, woman at the well. She had had 5 husbands and was currently living with man number 6. In that culture, she had completely given up. Her life was filled with despair. She had had it up to here with the scornful looks as society condemned her. Who would have imagined that day when she went to the well that she would meet face to face the one whose name is Mighty God?
You're listening to Back to the Bible. If you'd like to listen again, you'll find today's program along with older messages at backtothebible.org. And while you're there, browse our devotions, Bible studies, and Bible plans. You'll find a wide variety there, all designed to help you experience a deeper relationship with Jesus. Visit today, backtothebible.org.